this is really a mafia play watch, okay? If you're wearing a Patek Philippe 5980, you either paid all cash for it in the secondary market to try to flex on people in your network, or you bought your one Patek Philippe and you wanted to go what you thought was the king power watch to try to get as much bang for the buck as you could. Hey, welcome back everyone to the Benison Watch channel. I'm Cal Knight, luxury watch expert, investor, collector, teacher for over 15 years. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what certain popular timepieces say about your persona. Now, this is a topic that not a lot of people like. And the reason is, as horology experts and or watch enthusiasts, people like to think that it's only and always about wearing a watch because you like it. And trust me, I have plenty of timepieces in my collection that I like to wear that are solely for me and no one else, right? Like my first timepiece I ever bought was a Hamilton Petite Second Railroad. I have a Ulysse Nardin skeleton tourbillon, red, white, and blue limited edition. I have other types of Girard Perregaux and things that will stay in my collection because they're sentimental. I also have a lot of APs, Pateks, and Rolexes. But when it comes to understanding how the world works and getting to the core of the financial aspect and also the command that luxury watches have over people, we need to understand and accept potentially that they do send a signal out to the market, right? And this is something that I'm sure is going to be debated in the comments. This is, I'm sure, something that's going to be argued by the trolls, but that's what we're here for. We're here to make the conversation, and I want to see what you guys think. So we're going to take popular luxury timepieces that come through the shop at Benison, that come through different buy-sell trade forums and that I've seen out in the market that people will wear. And based on this perception, this is what's being put out. Now, some of these will be comical. Some of these will just be straight up truth. So I want to hear your thoughts, but we're going to run through the list and I'm going to tell you exactly what signal is being put out. Believe it or not, a luxury timepiece says a lot about what you are doing and what you are presenting. And one of the things that's most unique about this is you could sit there and say, I don't care what people think about me. I don't care how I'm perceived. And to that, there's a part of me that commends you because there is something beautiful in the nature of not really caring what other people think. But to deny that other people do perceive you a certain way or that they do think about you a certain way is completely false. And you can either accept the way the world is or you can reject the way the world is and pretend that it doesn't matter. So I always like to carry myself in a manner that is aligned to, I'm going to buy some watches for me and I'm going to buy some timepieces to make money and also project out the commanded, controlled image that I know will get exactly what I want in return. And that's where luxury timepiece collecting and investing can be so exciting because you can really connect with people that you want to connect with when you understand the perception that you are attracting by the timepiece you're wearing and what it does to the world around you. Okay, so this is the interesting part because I guarantee you some people are going to have a problem with understanding that that is the way the world works, that the world does work, whether you like it or not, in a way that people perceive you a certain way, and that by wearing certain timepieces, you are giving out different signals to different types of people. And there are people who potentially don't really care about timepieces that you're sending a signal to, and there's people who know what they know and know more than most people that you're going to attract by the types of timepieces you wear. So an example might be you wearing a gold Rolex. You might be attracting a lot more energy, but a lot of energy from places you don't want, like potential thieves, like people who don't know what money is or what luxury timepieces are that might think you're cool because you're wearing a gold Rolex. And you might attract people who know watches, but you're not really going to impress them. Versus if you're wearing a Patek Philippe perpetual calendar in white gold, that's very rare, you might not get the attention from the folks that don't really care, don't know what they're looking at, but you'll get the attention and connect with the people who are watch enthusiasts, high-end haute horology collectors, or people with high net worth. So it's up to you. You can decide what you want to do. You can decide if you believe this or not. But let's run through the list and let's give ourselves an idea of what perception you're putting out in the world. Number one, Rolex Daytona. Rolex Daytona, you're wearing a Rolex Daytona. I don't care if it's a John Mayer. I don't care if it's the ceramic, even though it does make sense. You're basically a guy who got a gift from your dad or you're taking a weekend vacation to the Hamptons. Rolex Daytona is like the high-end version of an Omega Speedmaster that everyone likes to wear to pretend that they are Paul Newman when you are not Paul Newman, right? So it's worn out as a status symbol and something that is like, hey, look, I have a Daytona. It's like, okay, if you're a collector, everyone has a Daytona. So if you have a regular steel Daytona, it's a go-to. If you have the ceramic dial Daytona, you're trying to show off to people who usually don't matter, right? And it's just something that you overpaid for unless you got it from your authorized dealer. So it's usually a gift as a hand-me-down, or it's like, look at me, I have the most popular Rolex that everyone wants, and I want people to love me, right? Rolex Submariner. So especially black bezel, black dial Rolex Submariner. Now, if you have one in your entire collection, that's a go-to, totally understandable. If it's your one watch, guess what? You're a one watch guy. And that's what you will be perceived as if you wear a Rolex Submariner. I don't care if it's an older one. I don't care if it's a newer one. You will be perceived as a one watch guy and as potentially someone who is an analyst who just got your first big bonus, because anyone who's on Wall Street or is an analyst or someone who gets a bonus usually buys their first big boy watch, and that watch is a Rolex Submariner because it's the most popular watch on planet Earth outside of a Rolex Datejust. Patek Philippe Calatrava. Now, Calatrava, the newer and or old generations, says, I am a third generation wealth pimp. Okay? If you're wearing a Calatrava, you have some swagger, you have some class. You do not care that it's a smaller face and the classical look. You are wearing a Patek Philippe, and damn, you are sporting it beautifully, because that is great for the collectors. That is great to attract the energy of the people who love haute horology. And it's also a subtle nod to the fact that you have a Patek Philippe and you're not really being overly flashy with it. The Patek Philippe Nautilus 5980. Now, the 5980 is the precursor to the 5990. Beautiful, beautiful watch. But nowadays, this is really a mafia play watch. Okay? If you're wearing a Patek Philippe 5980, you either paid all cash for it in the secondary market to try to flex on people in your network, or you bought your one Patek Philippe and you wanted to go what you thought was the King Power watch to try to get as much bang for the buck as you could. And that's the way it is. And the reason is, if you don't have a 5980, if you have a 5990, which is the next generation, you are actually someone who has an authorized dealer connection. So the 5990 is next on the list. You have AD connections. You have some big, big testones. You have some big money, and that's the new play with the blue dial. It's gorgeous. If you have the 5980 floating around, it's a gorgeous watch, but you either are in the mafia, you run a, chain of laundry bats, or you're holding on to dear life for that big boy watch that is no longer really relevant, even though it's a great legacy piece. So we talked about the 5990. Let's go to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Now, this one's clean, classic, Gerald Genta special, and usually you see them out in the wild in steel. There are some Royal Oaks in gold that are definitely FU watches, that are definitely watches that say, I know what I'm doing. I have some money to talk about. And yes, I like brands outside of Rolex. So I love the AP Royal Oak and Royal Oak Offshores. The AP Royal Oak Steel is a different story. That's kind of like the guy who's a wannabe collector, who's that one or two watch guy who's saying, yeah, I'm different than a Rolex collector. But it's like, yeah, you're different, but you have just a steel Royal Oak AP. And it's beautiful. It's clean. Don't get me wrong. It gets that respect. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, so what other APs do you have? That's it? Yeah, that's what I thought. So you're probably going to trade it into a lower end Patek eventually if you're moving on up in the world, or you're going to go back to your Rolexes or another AP Royal Oak. It's the way it is. The Omega Speedmaster Pro. Now, this is a huge popular watch. A lot of people have them, whether you're a diehard collector, whether you're someone who loves watches, or you're just someone who wants a nice piece that you can take out daily. The Omega Speedmaster Pro boasts the ability to be the first watch that went to the moon to save the astronauts. But unfortunately, that's the projection it gives. You're either a Forum fanboy if you're wearing an Omega Speedmaster, or you're a wannabe astronaut. There. I said it. Omega Speedmasters are clean. They're beautiful. But if you're an Omega Speedmaster guy, you basically want to go hang out at Red Bar and in the forums and chat all day about your Omega Speedmaster. It's kind of basic. It's fun. It doesn't really do much for the value of what you're being perceived as, unless it's an extremely vintage Omega Speedmaster, which are very rare and beautiful and collector grade pieces, or if you have a very rare silver Snoopy like the 50th anniversary or a silver Snoopy edition Omega Speedmaster. Super cool, super hot, something that's kind of like having a Paul Newman Daytona in your collection, something to boast to other people who know what they're looking at, but it's still Omega. And love it or hate it, Omega is on the lower end spectrum of watchmaking, and it doesn't have the same caliber as some of the big, heavy hitting pieces in the world. So by the people who don't know what they're looking at and the fanboys of the forums and the fanboys on Red Bar, you'll probably be the coolest kid on the block. But to someone who actually has real wealth and or is just looking for connecting over timepieces, it's pretty basic, and you're kind of going to be looked at as that guy who just wears the Omega Speedmaster because he doesn't have a lot of taste. Okay. Breitling Navitimer. Now, this one's such a cool classic for under 5K, especially the steel editions. They have some new ones that are above 5K, but when you're wearing that Navitimer, it just oozes class, even underneath the 5K mark. Now, you kind of come off as a pseudo wannabe pilot because it has all the instrument tools and reading mechanisms on it, but it's a great go-to. I'd actually choose the Navitimer over a Speedmaster or a Tudor or anything like that under the 5K mark because it's held value well. It's a super classy looking watch. It's a super beautiful piece, especially the world timer in 46 millimeter. And it's something that gives you a lot to talk about. It's a great conversation piece. It could allude to the fact that you own more than one timepiece. So I love the Breitling Navitimer. It's such a cool watch. And yeah, it kind of makes you feel like, is this guy I want to be pilot? Maybe, maybe not. The Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711, blue dial steel. Everyone knows that got discontinued, jumped in price astronomically. I actually sold it before it jumped the second time in the secondary market. This is the timepiece that made Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, cry when he got it as an allocation from his AD. But it's also the piece that everyone gets when they're trying to show off that one trophy that they never use or they never wear. So if you're that guy, and let's just say you played sports back in college, you won the championship one year, you still show off that trophy, even though you haven't played football in 20 years. That's what a Patek Philippe Nautilus is. It's basically like a beautiful piece. People love it. They respect it. They know you are someone to be reckoned with, someone to meet, someone of interest. But it's like, okay, amazing. That's gorgeous. What other pieces do you have? That's your trophy. Oh, right. That's the only trophy, right? The guys who have Nautiluses that are the 5711 are bringing it out only for very specific events to try to impress Rolex people and trump them, because Patek Philippe Nautilus trumps any Rolex pretty much, unless it's an ancient Paul Newman or it's something hyper rare. So they're really just out there showing off their one trophy, and it's fun and it's cool to do. But it kind of begs the question, what else you got going on, right? FP Journe. Anything Logic or FP Journe is gorgeous, right? FP Journe, I love as a brand, and it really is speaking new money wealth. Now, that doesn't mean that people who are young are the owners of FP Journe. There's plenty of folks over the age of 50 who own FP Journe, and plenty of folks under 50 who own FP Journe. And it's a long-term brand for collectors that's going to hold value. I love FP Journe. The thing is, when you're wearing it, it's an interesting dynamic, and it presents a unique perspective, because it's like, okay, this guy clearly likes timepieces and might have multiple watches in his collection. So the real people know what they're looking at and will appreciate it. But it's like, okay, so you went for FP Journe. So are you doing this as a hobby? Are you doing it as a collector? Are you doing it as an investor? Or are you doing all three? I think that it says you're ready to rock and roll and you have the money to drop on any piece, and you really care about watches overall if you're wearing an FP Journe. So I really appreciate that brand. Frank Muller Vanguard. Frank Muller Vanguard is basically the poor man's Hublot. Hublot, Big Bang, and or Spirit of Big Bang. We're going to call that the poor man's Richard Mille. Richard Mille RM10. This is the poor man's. No, I'm just kidding. It's not the poor man's. The RM10 is beautiful. It's gold. It is a great entry level Richard Mille. It's like if you just struck it big with crypto, or you were an NFT guy and you just got your new bonus check, or you sold a lot of units this year as a marketing guru and you got and rented your first Lambo, you could get an RM10. An RM10 is such a cool watch. It's very versatile. It definitely shows you have some capacity to drop money and have potentially some wealth, but it's also the entry level RM section of the pieces that will hold value in that range. So it kind of begs the question, are you really that guy, or are you just showing off like you're that guy? The RM Richard Mille 55 Bubba Watson. This is for boss men and women who want to roll through and be noticed, whether people want to notice them or not. RM55 is great. It speaks 100% to the way that Richard Mille is presented in the market nowadays. And usually the right people are appreciating this timepiece. Now, the people who wear this watch absolutely don't golf. Bubba Watson, who wears it while he's golfing, it was created after and in inspiration for Bubba Watson. But the people who wear this RM55 don't golf. Actually, almost every single human being that I've seen who had an RM55 isn't a golfer, which I think is hilarious and ironic, but it's definitely something that makes its presence known. A Breitling for Bentley. Now, this watch is in a whole nother world of crazy. This watch, I don't know why, but has only been worn on the wrists of guys who own multiple pizza shops and want to pay cash for watches or have blood on their hands. The Breitling Bentley is usually for guys over 300 pounds who literally want to hide cash from the government and want to project out that they have money when really it's like you could have got a lot more for your money in that range instead of buying an all steel giant Breitling Bentley or even the gold one with the bezel that's unique and looks like the Bentley homage design. It's just not saying the Bentley name and the Bentley prestige like it used to. It's really just something that is kind of like a Jacob & Co. under $20,000. You kind of look at it like a toy and you have to question whether it's real or not. Panerai Luminor. So whether you're buying a basic Panerai Luminor or you're doing the 44 millimeter to 47 millimeter, you're basically like Italian, you're a wannabe Italian, or you're someone who fights when they wear their watches. It's that simple. Let's be honest. You're not Sylvester Stallone, even though Sylvester Stallone loves Panerai and really brought prominence to the brand. So did Arnold Schwarzenegger. Panerai just isn't what it used to be. Panerai used to be the big man's go to war Italian Navy timepiece, and they've started making smaller and smaller watches, which are more dress watches, which I think is a crock of dung. But when you wear a Panerai now, it looks cool. I like that it changes it up from the usual Rolex or the usual Speedmaster or Omega. So it does give you that nod of, okay, they're trying something different. They actually care about what they're doing in terms of watches, but it's funny to see what types of people actually wear these Panerais, depending on which one it is. Next up, we have a Tudor. And any Tudor, whether it's a Black Bay, whether it's any sort of variation of what the Pepsi or Coke or whatever nicknames you give the Tudor is really just a poor man's Rolex. There, I said it. Go crazy on Reddit. It's a poor man's Rolex. Just step up your game, save $2,000 more, and get an Explorer 1 Rolex and just make the jump. Yes, they're owned by the same company. Yes, Tudor is a sister company to Rolex, but it's a Tudor. They're just not Rolex. So I just don't get it. I understand why there's fanboys and why people wear them, but every time I see someone wearing a Tudor, it's like, okay, you just didn't want to save another $2,000 and step up your game. That's it. And then we'll end with a really fun one that I'm sure everyone will agree with or completely light this comment thread on fire about, the Seiko Turtle Diver. What can I say? Am I not turtle enough for the Turtle Club? Turtle. Like, the craziness around the people who are diving onto this Seiko Turtle, or any Seiko for that matter, is like insane. I don't know where this group spawned from or why there's such a diehard following. And I guarantee you there'll be comments in the comment section about this, but Seiko is not Grand Seiko. If you want to project out that you have a collection, that you are someone worth connecting with, and that you have any sort of wealth, go to Grand Seiko. Do not continue to buy Seiko watches. I know they're cool looking. I know sometimes they're fun to tinker around with, but they're garbage. So that's what you're projecting out. You're wearing garbage. You're wearing cheap garbage. Yes, I know that you like the look. Yes, someone gave it to you. Excuse XYZ. Step up to Grand Seiko. It's that simple. If you care about the watches you're wearing and what people think of you. All right. Those were a good top range of timepieces. Love to hear the comments. Love to see if you agree or disagree. I know there's going to be some contradictory chatter going on. I know there's going to be some people who agree with me. So let me know what you think. We're going to have some great content coming up. Thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe below, and share it with anyone that you think is wearing these timepieces and see if they're actually perceived this way. And I'll catch you guys next time. All right, take care.